What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. So, I get so many requests to review guns and, compare this to that and all that. And I want to make a video sort of explaining why I'm not going to do the majority of those requests. Particularly, look, I know that I've sort of gotten traction in the YouTube world via 1911s, and I'm very thankful for that because I love them. And specifically surrounding the Tisas. I'm a massive, massive Tisas fan. But what's happened is it's created a gravitational pull for me to review other pistols in that same price range, and specifically against the Tisas. And I don't want to do that. And I'm going to explain to you why. Before I do, though, I want to explain to you that, I got into Tisas sort of by accident. So I used to be a Springfield guy. That was it. Springfield was all I cared about. Everybody else was doing it wrong, kind of how I feel about Tisas. And I still feel that way largely with Springfield, although their prices have gone up and they're starting to put plastic parts in and the compromise is beginning. But, I used to be a Springfield guy, and that's all I really ever cared to own and trust my life with. And, years ago, I was doing a trade with a guy with just a bunch of parts. It was I had an upper, he had a bunch of stuff, and he needed to sweeten the deal on his end. And so he's like, I got this Turkish 1911 I can throw in there. And I'm like, all right, it'll be a project gun. Okay, fine. So we did the trade. I got the 1911, which you guys now know as blue. I was blown away by the consistency, the quality across this particular pistol, the fact that it's John Moses Browning spec. And then I just did a deep dive. I'm like, who is this Tisas? What is this about? And man, the gun worked. I was just shocked. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. There has to be a mistake. Fast forward to now I know that these guns are made really well. They're all forged. There's no cast parts. They're made to John Moses Browning spec. It's a proper 1911. And they're doing it better than anybody out there right now in the factory category. Now, when I say factory category, what I mean is these are parts box guns. They're not hand fitting them. Maybe some parts where it's required, like the thumb safety and things like that. But these are not hand fitted guns. These are precision machined guns. And the modern manufacturing techniques allows them to get really close tolerances, so there's even less hand fit that would have been required. But essentially, at the end of the day, they're still just parts box guns to the original design, and there you go, right? And so to me, that's a factory gun. That's what the truest 1911s were and are. And so, I bought a second Tisas, and then friends of mine started getting them, and then people started sending them to me to work on, and I'm going, these are awesome. Across the board. Are they perfect? No, absolutely not. Nothing is. And certainly they have their faults. They overdo the Cerakote on some parts. It seems like maybe some of their slide stop pins are having some consistency issues. There's things we can criticize about Tisas all day long. But they're still doing it better than everybody else. And so that's how I got my start into Tisas. And that's why I started telling people about them. That's kind of how I started my channel, was saying, hey, should you guys trust these Tisas guns? Let me tell you what I think. And what it very quickly turned into was, yeah, but what about this? And yeah, but what about that? You got to compare it to this one. You got to compare it to that one because they cost the same. And I get why people want to do that, because there's two main reasons. One is they want to know, well, for instance, people in California can't buy Tisas guns. They can only buy Rock Island. And so they're like, okay, the Tisas is great, but I can't buy those. What about Rock Island? So that's a really legitimate, honest, well-meaning reason to ask for a comparison. But the overwhelming majority is, well, I own a Rock Island, and I need it to be as good as what you say. And it becomes a validation expedition. And I'm not interested in providing that at all. But specifically, guys, the reason I'm not super interested in comparing Tisas to all of these race-to-the-bottom guns out there is because nobody's doing it as good as Tisas. And to illustrate that, I made a spreadsheet. So this is just to help you understand how I think. So here on the spreadsheet, you see basically what I've done is I've listed the company, I've listed the price of the gun that we're talking about, and then just a feature list. Does it have it? Does it not? Okay. And I want to be really specific. We are talking about factory parts box 1911s. These are not super fitted guns. These are also as close to GI spec as we can get them. There's some variation across these guns where some of them maybe have like an extended thumb safety, or some of them have like a Novak sight or something. We're not going to quibble about that. I'm trying to compare them as closely as I can. So what I'm comparing from each of these companies is their most affordable GI factory level pistol. And so when you look at this spreadsheet, in the bottom left corner, we have Tisas. And looking at their 1911 A1 Government, that's their UPC for sort of their flagship government model basic 1911, which is what blue was. Basically, these metric boxes that I've checked off, these are the things that matter to me. Now, look, right here, people are going to say, well, what about this? Or I don't like your list, or it's not fair, or whatever. Then go start your own YouTube channel. That's my advice to you. This is what I care about. We're not talking about whataboutisms. We're not talking about, yeah, but that doesn't matter because you're never gonna. All those silly arguments, you guys are welcome to make them. But if you're asking me why I don't want to compare Tisas to the other race to the bottom 1911s, here's why. So when I look at the Tisas, I have a forged frame and slide. In fact, there's no MIM parts at all, no cast parts. The entire gun is forged, machined parts. That's a big deal. The guns are well fit, and what I mean by well fit is not by hand. They are manufactured in such a way where hand fitting is not required, and they're just really well done. You go look at my videos, nobody's going to do this because people don't do their research, but if you go look at my comments, there's no less than 50 people who have said, I wasn't sure about these guns, I bought them at your recommendation, and I'm blown away with how well done they are. I get these messages almost every day. I mean, it's constant. These guns are John Moses Browning spec. They're reliable, and they have nice finishes. You got Cerakote. Like, that's a premium, durable finish, right? This isn't some, cheap, dirty parkerizing job that somebody did in a puddle out front of their parking lot. These are good finishes, right? And even the Tisas parkerizing, it's really good. It's well done. Now, let's just compare this to Rock Island. So you see the price for the Tisas, $300, right? Let's look at Rock Island. $350 is about the average that I see for these. And we're going new prices, by the way. I'm not going used. Used is another conversation. Do you have a forged frame and slide? No. There are MIM parts. They're not well fit. The ones that I've interacted with, they're not well done. Now, I will give credit. My Cimarron, which is Arms Core, which is the same company that makes Rock Island guns, I have to give credit. The barrel fit was excellent. Really good. The rest of the gun was slop. They are not John Moses Browning spec. Do some parts work in them? Yes. But they're whack. And I won't go through the list, but my experiences with these, they're not John Moses Browning spec. And why does that matter? Well, that spec is proven. All the highest quality parts are going to be really close to that original spec. That's what I know. Like, I don't know why anybody would want to go outside of that. That's just me. So there you go. And then nice finishes. Yeah, but like, the parkerizing that I've seen on Rock Islands, again, it's very rough. It's not great. Does it work? Yes. And so when people are asking me to compare a Tisas to a Rock Island, why do I want to do that? Like, I understand, like, my California friends, you guys, that's all you got in California. Then that's what you get, right? Then that's what you should get. Look, in the one checkbox that I can say for certain on Rock Islands, they do work. I think they've been really reliable in my experience. The ones that I've shot and the one that I own, it's been great. Right? I don't have any complaints there. And so if that's what you can get, then that's what you can get. But why do I want to compare those two brands when I already, the metrics, how they compare to each other, they're not even close. It's not even a competition. Tisas versus Ruger. People want me to compare that. Guys, you're talking about a $900 gun that has a cast frame, MIM parts. Why? I don't like the way they look. I just generally think Ruger is gaudy, and I'm going to reserve any other comments. They're just, that brand is pointed at a very specific person. They're just not for me. They're fine. They are well fit. They're in-spec guns. I've worked on 2 of them. One of them was a Commander, one was full-size. They work, okay? Full credit, absolutely. The finishes, nice finishes, that's subjective. In my opinion, no. I don't like the bead-blasted thing. It's kind of goofy. But, okay, so it's a good gun, but I could buy 3 Tisas for the price of one of those. So what comparison? Why should I compare that? Like, I'm going to get, with the Tisas, I'm going to get a gun that's way close to an OG 1911. And then I'm going to go get a Ruger for $900. Why? What benefit is there in that? Let's keep going. Taurus. I will say, and I need to make sure this box is checked, they do have forged frames and slides, and I've confirmed that myself. I have completely rebuilt a Taurus. It is quality steel. They are slap full of garbage MIM parts. They're not well fit. They are not John Moses Browning spec. However, they work. So again, the cheapest one I could find on some of my favorite sites that I frequent, $435. Not only that, they look goofy. Like, everything about them is just off. Like, they use really tiny little sights, but they're like Novak sights, but midget Novak sights. Like, they're very strange. They're their own thing. And so for me, what's the comparison? There is no comparison. That nobody is doing it like Tisas. And let's keep going. ATI. This is another one I get a lot. All I know about them, I've shot one, but I've watched videos on them like you guys have. They seem to work, but guys, these are bottom of the barrel guns. So what's the comparison? I don't really see a point. Now, Gearson's been a really highly recommended one, and these are interesting because they seem to be going the same route as the Tisas side, where it's like, they're using forged frames and slides. They are using MIM parts, but they seem to be well fit. I don't know if they're John Moses Browning spec, and they seem to be reliable. However, even if they check all the same boxes as Tisas does, they're $200 more. So what's the competition? Why? Right? So you guys get my point. If you just go by the metrics, by the data, and how this thing shakes out, what's the point of comparing? Now, if another brand came along and they checked all the boxes that Tisas does, but maybe theirs were like blued, okay, that's a competition. Let's go. I'm going to buy one of those and we're going to compare it. Or let's say another brand came out and they had the guns properly sprung and included good magazines. Okay, that's a competition. And it checks all the same boxes. Now we're in a competition. But it's not a competition when you hold these up next to each other. They just don't compare. And so to me, look, I know it would get views. But I'm not interested in it. I don't really care. And look, the thing that I can't do with this YouTube channel is just, how do you say this? You can't just feed the algorithm, right? I don't want to be one of those people that's just like, oh, that gets me views, just pour into that, right? Like, that's gross. I'm doing what I'm interested in. Now, do I do requests? Yeah, if I'm interested in them and if I have the means to do so. But merely doing reviews just to generate views, I think that's empty. But let's keep going a little bit here. So a lot of people say, no way, I'm buying a Springfield, right? Okay, well, Springfield's great. I love them. And of course the other two, Colt and Springfield, it's like, man, Colt is terrible and they're 3 times the price as a Tisas. Springfield's really the only competitor to me on here. And the reason is it checks more boxes than anybody else on this board, and they're pretty affordable comparatively. It's twice the price, so that's the price for American, right? All your parts and stuff is imported, and they're just doing the final touches in America, would be my guess. I don't really believe they're completely made in America. So really, guys, I just wanted to explain to you why I'm not just going to keep buying 25 1911s to just compare them all to Tisas. Because look, if somebody can recommend a real competition, something that's in that price point and checks all those boxes, then I would consider it. But, nobody really does. And unfortunately, now it's just all these companies are coming out with what I call race to the bottom pistols. It's like, oh, if we can just do it $25 cheaper. And people bite on that. They think, oh, that looks like a 1911, add to cart. But these other companies, when you look at the specs, they just don't compare. Now, am I saying all these brands are garbage? No. Some of them are. Like, I'm personally just massively not a fan of Taurus. Those have given me a lot of problems in the past. And there's other brands that I didn't put on this list that are, I just think they're junk. They're just trying to make the cheapest thing they can. And I'm just not interested in that. I'm not curious to find out how it compares to a gun that I know is good when, let's think of it this way. Let's say that, like my favorite pizza place near me, it's the best, right? The ingredients are solid. Everything's made in-house. They don't buy in their dough. They spent good money on a real nice, like, pizza oven and everything. And when you eat it, you can taste it. But then somebody else comes along and says, hey, we're using bought-in dough from China, and we're using some random, Costco giant can of pasta sauce, and we're using, like, the stuff that the grocery store was going to throw out for pepperonis, but it's just as good. Like, no, the ingredients matter, right? How it's prepared matters. And this is the same with everything in life. And so, now look, how did Tisas get them so affordable? Here's my guess. Capital investment. That's how I think they did it. I think they got contracts making parts for the higher-end 1911 companies. I think they spent a lot of money on some really good technology, some high-end stuff in their factories. I think they're making frames, slides, and parts for a litany of companies that probably don't want that to be public. But really, at the end of the day, quality processes, quality machinery, quality QC, you go down the board, Tisas is clearly invested in these things, whereas these other companies, they're just trying, it's very obvious to me, they're just trying to grab the cheapest part possible to look like the right thing, throw it together, the gun works, but the question is for how long? Now, the reason that I've done comparisons with the Tisas with other guns like the Springfield and the Colt is because going back to the spreadsheet, that's the weight class this gun is punching in. It's better than my Colt. It's better than my Springfield. Just objectively, it's not how I feel about it. It's not clouded with faux patriotism. Objectively speaking, when I compare how these pistols are made, quality of materials, quality build, all those things and how they work, Tisas is punching in the $500 to $1,000 weight class. These other guns, Rock Island, Taurus, Gearson, ATI, guys, they're not. They are in another. They're in the junior class. They are in the $300 category. Tisas is punching well outside of its weight class, and to me, those are the reviews that are interesting. Those are the comparisons that are interesting, because it's amazing that they've managed to pull that off. And let me say this again: if another brand comes along, I'll tell you this right now. Here is how to get me to abandon Tisas. Have somebody else come along doing it that good and do a pre-war blued gun. If they do that, I don't care what name is on it. I don't care if it's made in the Amazon jungle or in somebody's backyard in Utah. I do not care. If the product comes out like Tisas and it's a good pre-war blued gun, okay, Tisas who? I'm not brand loyal. I'm quality loyal. That's what I care about. So there you go, guys. I just wanted to make a video and explain to you why, unless these guns come to me, I'm not going to go spend my money on these, what I think, no offense to anybody who owns them, I'm not going to spend my money on what I think are substandard guns compared to Tisas. There's just no competition. I know they cost the same and they look the same, but they're not the same. And I have enough experience with them to know, I'm just telling you that's how the reviews are going to go. So what's the point of doing them? So to me, it's not interesting, and if it's not interesting, I'm not going to do it. So I hope you guys understand that. I want to help you guys answer questions, and I want to be helpful. But at the same time, look, I've said this before, like, this is not my full-time job. I have 2 other ones. I've got a family, all those things. If interest and love is not driving this, I'm stopping, because why do this? This is a ton of extra work, right? So I have to do what I'm interested in. And also because, look, I think you all would agree, if I'm not interested in what I'm doing, you're going to watch the quality suffer. And I think this is true in life for everyone. When people don't care about what they're doing, you just get adrift from anything good. And so that's why I'm being really steadfast in this direction that, look, I'm going to do what I'm interested in. People, I love your requests, and people make a lot of great ideas. Like, I have 4 or 5 videos in my list over here of just people making a comment, hey, what if you did this? I'm like, oh man, that's a great idea. I love those requests, but I just wanted to explain why I'm not going to compare Tisas to everybody else. I just can't do it. And then on top of that, guys, I already don't have room for all these guns that I have. I do want to say I appreciate you guys watching. And look, I just want to close this video out with saying that, you know, this is me man-to-man advising you because I've walked this path. Don't get your pride and your self-worth tied up in what you own. Because look, you guys want to... I promise you, I have received more criticism than all of you because I have this YouTube channel with people crapping on Tisas. It's Turkish-made crap. I'd never own that because I only buy American, right? Like, I can't tell you how much criticism I get, and I don't care. And you know why? Because it's just a thing. It's a piece of metal. That's not who I am, right? And so if you hear me criticizing these other brands and you own them, I don't want you to feel bad, okay? You use what you can. Like, I recognize not everybody has access to everything, and if I was in your shoes, I would carry what I have with pride. I would make sure that thing works. I would know it inside and out, and I would say, hey, man, this is what I got, and I am unashamed of that. And I really think that's how you should feel. I don't want you to feel less than or ashamed. I'm just trying to explain this is why, just objectively, I'm not going to compare Tisas to a lot of other stuff. So, not that I'm a big Ashton Kutcher fan, but I remember a quote of his going around years ago where he said, the only thing that should be beneath you is not having a job. There's no such thing as, you know, oh, that job's beneath me. I'm not going to do that. That would be embarrassing. No. And it's the same thing with a firearm to protect yourself. You should not be embarrassed. And look, I don't even care if you carry a high point. If you're defending yourself and your family and that's what you've got, run it with confidence. And this is one thing, I know I said we were going to close the video, but one more minute. This is something that I really don't like. I have a lot of criticisms about what I call the tactical turtleneck community, and one of them is the arrogance. The arrogance of calling people poor when they're using affordable guns. I think that's disgusting. I think it's offensive, not at me, because look, I'm blessed. I've got a lot of good guns, but I've been there. I've been the guy who can't afford anything. And it is so disgusting and arrogant. And I'll just tell you this, those guys are going to reap what they sow. That arrogance is going to come back and bite them. And so I don't ever want somebody to feel shamed by me criticizing things objectively in a gun they might own. So I hope you hear my heart on that. I'm just trying to be objective. And look, I have a video that I'm going to be making soon about, like, what do I think is wrong with Tisas, and I'm going to beat up my own guns really hard because I actually think there's a lot to criticize with Tisas, quite a lot. My list right now is 12 things. So do I think they're perfect? No way. And you guys know my Colt, right? This is my gun. You want to talk about beating up on something you own? I have trashed this gun that I spent a lot of money on, more than I think any other 1911 I've ever had in my possession. So there you go, everybody. A little bit of a longer video, but I want to explain myself so that you guys kind of understand the direction and what I'm doing here, and you know, hear it from me. And also, I didn't want to do this like with a text post. I wanted to just, I want you to see my face and hear what I'm saying in my tone so that you can hear my heart. So there you go, guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you getting us all here. We're almost to 7,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And it's all because of you guys. You've just been awesome. So appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one.